What up, Sisterhood? I'm so excited to be here with you. This is going to be an incredible season. Last year was all about lifting others up, and this year is about being immovable, and I am so excited about this. Not only being immovable in our relationship with Jesus, we are talking about being immovable in our relationships with one another, and I can't wait for this to be the focus of our year, because I believe that friendships among women are so important. But I also have seen that friendships among women have really been struggling. I feel like every single person can relate to that. I feel like friendships have been easier, and lately it has been really hard. This season is going to be all about giving quality, godly friendships with one another that spans generations. And something that I find really neat is we have a life group here called the Morel Circle. And this is a group of women that have been involved in each other's lives for, it seems like, forever. Pastor John was telling me that they've been involved in each other's life for up to 80 years. This life group has been around for over 100 years. How cool is that? And I feel like so much of what sisterhood is because of their legacy. And I want that for us. I want that for our generation. And so I stand before you being a woman who has always genuinely really craved deep and meaningful relationships. I have. I don't know, maybe we all do. I feel like at the core of us, because we are made in the image of God, we all have this desire to crave deep, meaningful relationships. And I just want to show you a picture. This is a picture of myself and my best friend growing up, Lindsay Malachek. I think we're in about second, maybe fourth grade. And her mom, Colleen, who is my spiritual mama, is taking the picture. And honestly, we are all still really close 30 years later. Here's a picture of us 30 years later, and I think it's so amazing to have a relationship that we have done decades together. And I feel like we were made for this. We were made to have these deep, meaningful relationships, but why are they so much rarer today? Do you feel that? I feel like deep, meaningful relationships are so much more rare, and why is that? And that is the question that I want to answer today. And I'm just going to straight up say it right away. I think the reason why relationships are so much harder is because we don't know how to handle conflict. The answer is simple. I feel like I talk to older generations, and they know how to do this. They know how to handle conflict. They've been through decades of stuff. They've hit things head on. They've gone through hard things, and they're still friends together today. Why don't we have that? I want that so badly for us today. And it's funny, I feel like you can go all around town. You see the group of older people at Tyson's, now Strax and Van Til. You see the people at Community Corner, they've done life together and they've done it well. And I think that is something that all of us really want. I want to share a story with you that is going to give context to this point, but you got to hang in there with me to see it through. So, a lot of you know that I grew up one of 4 girls. Loved it, so much fun, had a great time growing up. My mom worked for my dad, so she was not only a working mom, but she also had a lot going on in other areas. My dad owned his own company, so he worked 100+ hours a week. So they were around. They did a great job providing, but my sisters and I fended for ourselves a lot. So my sisters were some of my best friends. But my younger sister, Dana, was truly my best friend. We did everything together. We shared a room until I was 16, but not just shared a room, we shared a bed. We were that close. We would stay up at night, doing sing-alongs, playing games, talking about our crushes, JTT, Backstreet Boys, all the good ones, right? We were so tight. And also, we kind of we did things way too long together. I feel like we played Barbies way too long. We took baths together way too long. We all remember taking baths with our siblings. And I don't know why I'm telling this story, but I specifically remember one time we were taking a bath together, so we must have been pretty young. But my mom, for some reason, was like, hey, I got to run some errands. Don't do anything stupid. And that's like the universal language for like, what kind of stupidity can we get up to tonight? Like, for real. So anyways, we're taking a bath, we're playing with our Barbies in the bathtub, and my younger sister was always the one that wanted to end things early, and I was always the sister that was like, no, come on, we gotta keep playing. So anyway, she's like, this is lame, I'm getting out of the bathtub. And I'm like, what could we do? I'm like looking around the bathtub, and I'm like, I see my mom's razor. And I'm like, Dana, we could shave our bodies. And she like gets back in the bathtub. And when I say we can shave our bodies, I mean, I will shave your body and you will literally have hairy arms the rest of your life. You're welcome, Dana. Like, that is literally what happened. She still gives me crap today about her dark hairy arms. I'm sorry. But anyways, like, her and I, best friends growing up. Like, we did everything together. And now we live in 2 different states, plus there's COVID happening. And something else that you should know is she has 5 kids spanning from under a year old to 15 years old. So it just makes it really, really hard for her to get down here. And so on top of that, when Pastor John and I were moving to Indiana, my dad actually left my mom for another woman. So now my parents are divorced. Now we don't do holidays anymore. It just has made for a really hard situation where we do not see each other very much. But my older sister, Bethany, on the flip side, she has kids closer in age. It's just been a lot easier to see her. Usually they come down in the summertime. We go to Minnesota in the wintertime. But this year they were moving, so they didn't have room for us in their house. So they decided to come to Indiana for the New Year's. Well, little known fact, we were making these plans and we totally forgot to include my younger sister, Dana. So she calls me and she's like, Kristin, why didn't you tell me that you weren't coming to Minnesota for Christmas? I was really looking forward to seeing you. And I'm like, oh, dang it, I suck, right? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to not include you. She's like, will you just please keep me in the loop next time? And I'm like, girl, of course. I got your back, I will. Well, fast forward, Bethany's here, we're having fun, our kids are playing great together, and we're like, oh, I'm so bummed I'm not going to see you until the summertime. We got to plan something in between. Light bulb moment. Let's go to Wisconsin Dells. Let's ditch the boys. It'll be the first time that we go without them. We'll bring all the kids. We'll have a great time at the water park. Like, it's going to be a blast. Well, I feel like a lot of you know where I'm going with this story. We totally forgot to include Dana. I know, we're horrible, we're the worst. There's like not even a thought that crossed our mind after the fact that she already confronted me. So the worst part is it's not even like, oh, we planned it and then we remembered a little bit later. No, like we did not remember at all. So my younger sister literally finds out about this from my 10-year-old niece. So my 10-year-old niece is at her house and she's like, hey, Aunt Dana, guess what? We are all so excited to go to Wisconsin Dells with Aunt Chrissy. And in my imagination, I imagine Dana like, really? Like, we're all so excited to go to Wisconsin Dells to see Aunt Chrissy, including Aunt Dana, and then you die? Like, what? Like, I can't imagine how just frustrated and angry my younger sister was in that moment. Maybe she wasn't, but I would be so frustrated. Like, she just confronted me. Like, so bad. We done messed up, right? So fast forward, she finds out the next morning, it was the next morning, I'm on my couch, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, I got my coffee, I'm reading my Bible, and I get this text message pop up on my screen. And you know when you get a text message and it's like a punch in the gut, I'm like, oh crap, like this is not good. So, and I got permission from my younger sister to read this, but I just want to read you the text message that she sent me. It says, Faye told me you and Bethany are going to Wisconsin Dells this February. Why do you guys always not tell me anything? I'm hurt you didn't invite me, regardless of my circumstances. Not cool. Have fun. It's like, crud, right? I want to ask you guys this question. If you had a friend or a family member send you this text, how would you respond? Now, obviously, I am not at my best. She's hurt. In this text, she's not at her best. We're both at fault, right? All of us have gotten text messages like this. But when we get text messages like this, we usually don't handle it well, right? I mean, I feel like all of us right now are thinking about times like, yep, there's been quite a few times I haven't handled that quite well. So I think there's either one of two ways that we don't handle this well, or how we handle it, I guess maybe I should say. One, a lot of us, we just ghost, shut down, ignore, shove it down into that place we don't want to open. Maybe we'll text them back a month from now, 6 months from now. Never. Like, come on, let's be honest. Some of us like literally avoid and never text the person back. You're like, well, I'm just going to cut this relationship up. And I think this is why so many of us float from shallow relationship to shallow relationship, because we're not willing to be confronted, and not when we don't know how to handle conflict. So a lot of us, I think majority of us, ghost, shut down. But then there's some others of us, that's just our sign to go in, level up, and power up, and like lash back. Like there's people in the room where you're like, I don't shut down. That's just my cue to like hurt out of my own hurt. And you lash out, you say the truth, not in love, and you hurt because what they said hurt you so bad. And this too, it's lonely, it's unfulfilling. And the people that are in your life, that stay in relationship with you, they, one, probably don't have a backbone, let's be honest, right? Two, they probably are so afraid to confront you because of the way that you lash out, they're not even confronting you anymore. So both of these ways that a lot of us handle conflict are not good. And here is my thought. There has to be a third way. There has to be a better way, right? So many of us, again, we are jumping from shallow relationship to shallow relationship because we don't know the third way. So I want to ask you this question. How do you handle conflict in friendships? All of us right now. How do you handle conflict in friendships? One, when you are confronted, right? And two, when you are being confronted. So I want to hit that first one. How are you when you're confronted? How often, when you're confronted, do you get defensive? I want you to ask this question. Would you want to be confronted by you? When was the last time you were confronted and you literally were just like, you know what? It's all my fault. I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? Does that happen in your life? But then the caveat is without getting super hurt and overly emotional. I think sometimes a lot of us can say the right things, but then we walk away and we're like in our like bitter, hurt, unforgiving place, and like you say the right things, but how often can you do that and really mean it and extend that grace and extend that forgiveness in the moment? I think for a lot of us, it's not often. See, my MO before I was a Christian was I will be the very best friend you've ever had, right? But there is a caveat with that because, okay, at first glance, before I was a Christian, I don't know, I was a pretty captivating person. John had me write this in here, but I had some friends. Like, I was one of those people who genuinely loved asking questions. I still love asking questions, but I've always been really curious about who people are, what makes them tick. And so people were drawn to that, right? But the deal with the devil, if you were my friend, was I will be the very best friend you've ever had, but you can never confront me. Like, literally, I did not like being confronted. I can think of times when my friends in high school and college confronted me, and it would turn into this huge blowout. And it would only get resolved if either they apologized or we swept it under the rug and it was never talked about again. Like, literally, that was the only way that it would be, that we would be friends. Like, genuinely horrible, but that literally is how I live my friendships. And there were a lot of people who I ultimately could have been great friends with, but we were not close because of the sheer fact that they would confront me and not back down, and I would not have it, and I'd be like, fine, you know what? I don't like you, and I'm literally going to cut you out of my life because I do not want you to confront me in this sin right now. Like, done. And I only had one best friend in high school and one best friend in college. I think for the sheer fact that this is the way that I was in friendships, because I only had a couple people who were willing to stay with me as I acted this way. And so what was the result of this? I mean, you all know it, right? Emptiness, loneliness, shallow friendships, right? I had friends that I did stuff with, I had great memories with, but ultimately they were all shallow because I was unconfrontable. How are you when confronted? Part of the reason, honestly, I was so intimidated and afraid to confront others was because I knew exactly how horrible how I reacted when I was being confronted. Like, that scared me. I was like, if people act the way I act, I don't want to confront people. Like, genuinely, that is why I was always intimidated to confront. So let's go to the second part of this question. How are you at actually confronting people? Would you want to be confronted by you? Are you clear? Are you concise? Are you kind? Are you actually thinking about their best interest and not your own? Would you be able to be confronted by you? I want us to take this moment right now and think of the last time you confronted your husband, your best friend, your boyfriend, a family member. How would you handle being confronted by you? Once again, the answer for me is not good. Before I followed Jesus, it was never good. And now honestly, I think even as Christians, this is still a tension that we are trying to be more like him, but it's still a struggle. I feel like in our flesh, no one likes to be confronted. But here's the deal. Before Jesus in my life, the way that I would confront it's so horrible. I would literally passive aggressively drop hints here or there, maybe, kind of, sort of, would you do this thing, maybe? And then I would get so angry when people didn't get my confrontation that I would just literally blow up, rage, and a lot of times just cut you out. I confronted them so many times, and it was but did you? I didn't. It was just subtle hints here or there, and I would just get so angry that I just fine, I'm making a new friend. I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And it's just so sad because I can look back and I wonder how many incredible, amazing friendships that I missed out of because of my inability to confront and be confronted. So a lot of you're like, all right, Kristin, I feel you, feeling the conviction. I want to be better about this. What does God have to say about this? I want to turn to him, and I want to turn to John, specifically John 1:14. It says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." So Jesus came to us full of what? Grace and truth, right? Of all the things the Apostle John could have described Jesus as, I can think of a lot of attributes of God, a lot of cooler ones in my mind, right? He could have said glory and power, justice and strength, love and mercy. Nope. The grand summary of Jesus is a combination of two things: grace and truth. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's an odd combination. So let's take a second to define these two things. Let's look at grace. Grace means a reprieve from a consequence or a punishment you have coming. So another synonym would be forgiveness. Basically, grace is just forgiving one another, right? I'm oversimplifying it, but just so we're all on the same page. So let's look at truth. This is another really simple definition, but truth is just literally a reminder of what is. Truth is a reminder of what actually is. Truth is truth. It's kind of a hard word to define, but this is who Jesus is. He is the perfect man. He is the perfect leader, the perfect friend. He is fully God. And this is how he came to us. And John, Jesus' best friend, when describing who his best friend Jesus was, He said he came to us, and his core trait was grace and truth. This is the third way that we are all looking for. This is the way that we confront. We confront with grace and truth. See, Jesus was not just all grace. He did not just ignore, roll over, shut down, pretend that nothing was happening. No, that was not Jesus at all. But on the flip side, Jesus was not just all overpowering and only truth. He didn't shout, yell at people, tell people it's all your fault. No. Jesus stood this middle ground that he walked perfectly in the middle of grace and truth. And this is really hard to do. If you have ever tried to do this, this is extremely hard. I imagine it's like being a magnet between two poles. Like you want to gravitate towards one and the other, and every single one of us, like you know which one you gravitate towards more. Some of us, we gravitate more towards grace, and some of us, we gravitate more towards truth. In our marriage, you already know, I'm the one that more like, nah, let's ignore, I'll gravitate towards grace, and John's like, truth! Like, they have to know the truth, and opposites usually attract, right? But all of us in this room, like, we naturally, in our flesh, gravitate towards one or the other. But Jesus walked perfectly in the middle. So the big question that we all have is, how do we walk this middle of grace and truth? And I have found that you can discern between the two by asking the right question. We don't shut down, we don't walk away, we don't attack. You can search for truth in love by asking ourselves a question. And I believe that this question is going to revolutionize so many of our lives. This is going to be something that I hope and pray that sticks in our minds for generations to come, and that Jesus would shine brighter through us than we could ever ask or imagine, because we actually choose to walk perfectly in the middle and prayerfully walk through the middle by asking us this question. And so this is the question that I ask myself when I am in one of these sticky situations where I'm either being confronted or having to confront. And if you don't already, I would love for you to get a pen and write this down. Okay, you ready? So the big two questions are, what do I want this relationship to look like after this conflict? And how do I need to act to get there? I'm going to say it again. What do I want this relationship to look like after this? And how do I need to act to get there? This has been such an illuminating question for me. See, I don't want whatever problem is happening to continue. I don't. None of us do, right? It's like, I don't think any of us wake up in the morning and like, I can't wait to have conflict today. Like, no, I don't want it to happen anymore. So I need to find some truth. I can't just ignore it. I can't run away. I shouldn't ghost them, cut them off, abandon the friendship. But on the other side, I also still want this friendship. So I need to give grace and be kind. Like, I can't just tell the truth all the time, not be nice. Like, no, we need to be nice. We need to show grace. So this question, I believe, is going to unlock both grace and truth. And I have a great example of this. And I just love when God gives something in our day-to-day. And this literally just happened. So last week, we had, our childcare provider had COVID, and then we have all these snowstorms, so it's just been a crazy hot mess. So John and I have been scrambling to find childcare, and I don't remember what day. We'll say Tuesday, but that might not be right. But on Tuesday, I was like, hey, John, could you pick up Aurora from preschool? I'm going to be in Hebron. That would be awesome. And he's like, yeah, no problem. What time do I need to pick her up? And I'm like, she needs to be picked up at 10:50. Now, he thought that I said 10:30. And I don't know. Could I have? Yes. But am I like 99.9% sure that I said 10:50? Yes. I am like pretty certain I said the 50, not the 30. So anyways, he gets there at 10:30, and he's like, he confronts me in a text like this. He says, showed up at the school at 10:30, like you said. School does not get out till 11, sad face. Now, I could have been like, hey, idiot, I done told you 10:50. Why are you there at 10:30? Like, what is your problem? Like, honestly, that is what I wanted to text back. Like, why are you ruining my day with this passive-aggressive, mean text, right? Like, that is what I wanted to say. But then this question came into my mind. Like, this is how I live my life. I ask myself these questions all the time. What do I want this relationship to look like after this? Do I want, you know what I want it to look like? I want Pastor John to be my best friend. I want to be able to come home to him that night and not get in another fight or be angry with each other or be just yucky, right? I mean, you all have been there where you get in a fight with your spouse or a friend through a text, and then the next time you see him, it's just like, ugh, now we got to fight for like an hour after we put the kids down for bed, and it's just going to be miserable. Like, we have to be able to visualize it. Like, how do I want my relationship to look like after this, right? So I just texted him back, and I said, I told you 10:50, ... I'm sorry, I must have miscommunicated. I must have communicated with you badly. I'm so sorry, John. And he just replied, no worries. What did that cost me? Not lashing out, not having to be right, because that's truly like what I wanted to be right. I wanted him to know that he was wrong, right? What did it cost me to have a little humility? Nothing. It cost me nothing. What would lashing out have gotten me? Anger, bitterness, a worse marriage, fighting in the evening. It would have been horrible. Why do we do this to ourselves? Like, I do this to myself all the time. Why do we choose this? It's sad. And you know what? What grace and truth got me was personal growth, a better relationship with my husband. And guess what, ladies? I got to go home to a man who was excited to see me, who loved me, who we didn't have to stay up till 10 o'clock fighting. Like, it was all good. Like, doing that made my life and his life and my relationship with God so much better. I want us to trust God and trust his promises that he will repair our relationships when we walk out what Jesus teaches and walk in grace and truth. I want us to be women who have a vision for the future, who have a vision of the legacy that we want to leave behind. That's all. Our church's word is legacy. Like, we need to be able to visualize what we want our relationships, not only with other people look like, but our relationship with Christ looks like. And then actually go and act on how to make that happen. I feel like this is, though, a constant tension that we are going to have to be awakened to, okay? So when you notice that you are gravitating towards grace, that you only want to give grace, you want to shut down, you want to be passive-aggressive, you want to just ignore it, right? When you see yourself do that, you need to seek God. That is a little internal warning sign. You need to go seek God. And you need to pray and be like, God, is there truth that you are wanting me to bring into this relationship? And will you help me give it to them in grace? Now, for others of you, when you see yourself gravitating towards truth and you want to lash out, when you want to get angry, when you are frustrated and you just want to hurt out of your own hurt, that is your sign that you need to go and seek God. And seek his presence and be reminded of the grace and forgiveness that he so freely gave you so that you can go and extend it to others. I find it so helpful when I am being confronted by somebody or needing to confront somebody to always give them the benefit of the doubt, to believe the best about them. I love what it says in Philippians 2:3. It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, love others more than yourself. Because let's be real, when we are hurt by someone, it's either one of two scenarios. First one is, they didn't mean to hurt us. Like, how many times have you been confronted and you're like, I had no idea? Like, most of the time when someone has hurt us, they are clueless. They have no idea that they hurt us. And they need someone to love them enough to tell them, hey, that hurt, so that they can not do it again in this relationship and their other relationships, right? Second scenario, maybe they did mean to be hurtful. Sometimes we do. Let's be honest. All of us are born with a sinful nature. So sometimes we have meant to be hurtful. But that too, we need to be women who love women enough to confront them and say, hey, that hurt. What's going on? What is going on in your heart? Are we okay? Is there more to this? Is there something that I've been doing that has been hurting you so that now you are lashing out in this way? We need to be people of grace and truth, and to know that we can be a people who can model Jesus to those around us imperfectly. But I really believe that we will see our friendships grow and our love for Christ grow when we live our lives like Jesus and try and prayerfully walk that balance of grace and truth. So I want to end by going back to my story with my sister that happened with my plans of going to Wisconsin Dells and not including her. See, when I got that text at 5 a.m, there's a part of me, I just wanted to shut down. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. Can I just screenshot this, send it to my older sister? Can she take care of it? I don't want to deal with this. I'm scared, right? But then there's another part of me that wanted to lash out, that wanted to fight and be nasty and do only truth and be like, you know what? If I want to hang out with Bethany, I can. And you know how many times you guys have left me out of things? You guys live in Minnesota together. How much am I not included in, right? I wanted to get feisty. I wanted to fight back. But here's the deal. Jesus came in grace and truth. And he is our example. He is my example. I wanted to see her perspective, but I also wanted her to see mine. That's truth. I want us to have a relationship with one another where Jesus is in the center and we love each other well. That's grace. So the truth is, I was inconsiderate. I screwed up. And you know what? I own that. I apologize. I was like, Dana, this is all my fault. Will you forgive me? On the flip side, for her, the truth is her season of life makes it really hard for us to get together. And she owned that. And we talked it through, and we are still friends today. And honestly, you guys could laugh and be like, of course you are. But do you know how many relationships I hear where people don't talk to their family members or don't talk to a friend that they've been friends with for a decade over something as silly as this? It's tragic. It's all the time. I want you to ask these questions in your next conflict. What do I want this relationship to look like after this? And for me and my sister, I want us to be friends not only in this lifetime when we're 80, 90. I want us to be friends in the next life. I want to see her in eternity. I want us to grow old, to talk about our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids. And I want our best memories to be ahead of us, not behind us. So how did I need to act in order to make this happen? Well, I apologized immediately through text. She texted me back. I apologized again. And honestly, she didn't text me back. So the next day, I texted her again. Hey, sis, I love you. No text back. Okay, the next day, I called her. Because I was like, how do I need to act? How did Jesus act in his pursuit of me? He was relentless. And I will be relentless to make sure that she knows that I love her and that nothing will ever stop me from loving her and pursuing this relationship. Nothing. Not nasty words, not my sinfulness, nothing. And you know what? She finally answered my call and we talked. And we have a better relationship now than we did before. Maybe you have a friend, a neighbor, a brother, a sister, a husband, a child. How can you use this question to show God's grace and truth in that relationship? Are you trapped in broken relationships? Because Jesus is the only one who softened my heart. And I describe myself. I had a hard heart. He came in grace and truth. And by his grace, he took the consequences of my sinful choices. And then, in truth, he called me to sin no more. To the woman at the well, to the woman caught in adultery, to the tax collector caught cheating, He said, go and sin no more. Before Jesus, I could never give grace to others. I would give like a superficial, artificial grace, but it was never genuine grace. Before Christ, I couldn't. Now with Christ in my life, He has made me a grace giver. When I became a Christian, when I at 24 cried out to Him, broken, hung over in a stranger's house after a night of booze and cheating and a lifetime of judging others for doing the same, He came to me in that moment and outstretched His arms and said, my grace is sufficient for you. Kristin, go and sin no more. I finally, in that moment, saw that I was a sinner. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to abandon who I was, what I lived for, and go and follow Him. That choice, it changed everything. And if you're here and you want that, you want to be able to forgive others. You want to be able to forgive your family members, your husband, your friends. I want to call you to receive God's grace, because without it, it's impossible. We were made to be in relationship with Him. We were made to have Him as a helper inside of us. And if I am speaking to you and you want a relationship with Christ, we would love for you to check that box on your Connect card. Whether tonight, maybe if you're going to go home and pray about it, on Sunday next week, check that box that says, I want to choose to follow Jesus. I made a decision. Maybe if you're listening and you're like, this is the first time I've ever heard that Jesus wants to give me eternal life, that He will meet me in my brokenness, that He is willing to come beside me, pick me up and say, go and sin no more. If that's you and you're like, I would want to, but I don't know enough. Check the box that says, I want to learn more about following Jesus. But for all of us, we need community. We need other believers. We need people in our life that we even can ask these questions and do life together and pursue Christ together. We need to be in community. And my hope, my dream, my crazy prayer is that all of us tonight would choose to join a sisterhood discussion group, whether that's on the Connect card, whether that's online on our website, First.church. Just click on that big life group button. All the sisterhood life groups are on there. And if they don't work, just join a life group. They're amazing. But we can't continue to pursue Christ without each other, lifting each other up, and being in relationship with one another. I want this for us. But for every single person in this room, I want us to all take a next step by trusting God's word, by deciding before we ever get into our next conflict that we are going to ask these transformational questions. What do I want this relationship to look like after this? And how do I need to act to get there? Will you take a next step of faith with me and choose to leave an eternal legacy? Will you decide to love like Jesus in your relationships? I believe that Northwest Indiana would be the hardest place for people to go to hell, because all of us would actually be living like Jesus, extending His grace and truth, living out our faith. I believe that there could be a revival in this community if we would just take a step of faith and choose to live this out. Will you guys please stand and will you pray with me before we go into a time of worship? Heavenly Father, I just thank you. I thank you for your grace. I thank you for meeting us where we're at. I thank you for taking broken, sinful people and telling us to sin no more, giving us your Spirit, giving us your helper to go and live out our faith. I pray that we would be a generation of women who would live it out, that we wouldn't be complacent any longer, that we wouldn't be passive aggressive, that we wouldn't say the truth with no love, God, that we would be a generation who truly love like you. God, please make us immovable in the faith. and that people would take notice that you are real, that you are God, and that you are our leader and forgiver. Jesus, enable us to do greater things this year than we could ever ask or imagine. Give us godly friends, but more importantly, make us a godly friend with you and with one another. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.